Hello everyone, it's Matt from Akuma Mods back again with our actual review on the Creality LD-002r. Yes, I know that's quite a mouthful, but you know, I guess that's the name they went with. Hey, can't blame them. But anyway, without that, let's get into the actual thoughts and actual review on the machine. So I've been printing with this for about 2.5 weeks now, maybe 3 weeks. So about a month or so, give or take. And I haven't really done any upgrades to it, besides, you know, printing some vat tippers, which, you know, that's about the only modification that I've done to this. And it's not even a modification, it's more or less an add-on. I usually try and have those because, as you can see, it drips very nicely. I do have a print on here right now, and I've used several different resins with this printer, and as of right now, it's probably the best printer that I have in that price range. So currently, when I got it, it was at about $280. Now, you can get them at various places, ranging anywhere from $180 to $280. So there's that $100 price range right now, depending on where you get it. I think last I saw, Amazon had them for about $240. But again, as of making this video, it might have changed yet again, because the market is changing. And also, there's a new model coming out. So I'll get to that at the end of the video here, but I just more or less wanted to go over this model. So first off, you know, we did an unboxing and everything, and it went off without a hitch. Very, very simple, straightforward video, and you know, unboxing it was just as easy. So with printing, I haven't had any issues in terms of major failures. Obviously, I have had failures, and the only reason for that is because we were printing with some new material that's coming on the market. Actually, again, as of shooting this video, it's probably on the market now, but it's some elastic resin. So this is some very, very flexible stuff. It's not super elastic. Like, when I think elastic, I think of stretchy, but you know, that's more or less like a flexible resin out of anything. But they did already change the formula on that. So that's about the only thing that I've had fail on me consistently, and that's because these things require 16-second exposure time. So they're up there as I like to call them, the screen killers. Because they will kill your screen very, very quickly. Some points to go over on what I personally like about the system over, you know, say my Elegoo Mars or my Anycubic Photon or even my Anycubic Photon S. And I'll even throw in, you know, the Mars Pro up there even. This printer, it has a 4-point bed leveling system, which I know a lot of people are all about the ball joint style. So there's a couple things that I don't really like about that. First off, to get it truly level is kind of hard for a lot of people, and they don't always get it on the first go. Secondly is, when you level that, you usually unscrew one screw in the front and one screw in the side. Well, that makes the build plate swivel completely. So you can 180 that build plate. So alignment is another issue that I have with that style of build plate. Whereas the 4-point system, it's already aligned, ready to rock and roll. All you're doing is just leveling it. So it's super simple, straightforward. I personally think it's way faster and easier to do that. With that being said, I've actually never ever leveled this build plate. It's been pretty good right out of the box. I don't believe Creality said that it, you know, it was leveled or anything, but they do suggest it in the manual. So that makes me believe that it's not technically leveled, but mine obviously was. So another key point that I really, really like about this is the vat. The vat actually has, in the back here, there's some notches on the vat. And it actually tells you what level of resin is in there. And I believe it maxes out at like 300 or something, or 285, somewhere around there. So you can gauge how much resin you can put in there. So if you have a very, very long print and you're worried about overfilling the tank, which I have at least once on my Anycubic Photon, because there's no steps on there or anything to tell me how much resin I'm actually adding. So with that, you know, it's a really, really nice feature to have for those people who are newcomers to the resin community and don't really understand that, you know, filling it too much can be a bad thing, but that at least tells you, hey, this is your maximum fill. Don't fill it any higher than that. So that's another kudos thing. And another thing to add on to that is the air filtration system. This is by far a long stretch between the Elegoo Mars ones that I've seen and the Anycubic Photon. I'm not saying, you know, it's like super, super superior, but it's definitely just a tad bit above that. I've not had any issues. I've had this printer pretty much sitting here the entire time. I think I brought it down for one other review video, and that's it. But for the most part, it's been printing right next to me with no issues. I have no smell of any resin or anything like that. Now, granted, I do have other air filtration systems right behind me in my rack. But usually, like, if I'm printing with the Photon or I have the Mars right here, I can usually smell a little bit with the Mars. It's just very, very slightly. And then the Photon, it seems like it just doesn't work at all. So, I don't know if that's just was a marketing gimmick on their part, but definitely a lot better for the filtration systems. Let's talk about the actual build of the machine. The build I personally like. I like those colors. I'm kind of a Prusa fanboy in a way. I used to own a Prusa, so those color schemes of black and orange. I don't know if the color's coming through on this video or not, but that's what it is. It's kind of like a bright orange, or kind of darker orange, I should say. And then you have the Creality logo on here. But I personally like the look of this printer. It is a very, very nice looking printer. Far superior, at least for me, than my Mars, my Photon. So, I mean, those right then and there are some key points for selling on me. As for some downfalls, I actually haven't had really any major downfalls. I know a lot of people have stated, you know, the LCD touchscreen goes wonky. And that was because it kind of grounds out on the metal frame here. And then there's some other things with like the LED light going bad and the LCD just tripping out. I personally have never had any of those problems. I'm well aware of all the issues that this printer currently has. And I was expecting that, but here I am printing for at least a month, and I've had not any signs of it being any issue whatsoever. So, I mean, in terms of how it prints and everything, again, I haven't really had any issues besides, you know, some exposure setting issues when I was printing this elastic stuff, because it's really, really hard to do. But I mean, the prints that come off of this machine are very, very nice. Here's some of the test prints that I did with some, this is expired resin, actually. So that's why, if you guys can see this, there's some white all around there. That's because this resin I picked up from Anycubic, and it's been expired for about 1.5 years now. So, but it still works. And it prints perfectly fine. As you can see, it's just, you got to do a little bit of extra cleanup because the resin doesn't fully expose. And, you know, obviously, with expired resin, you will get some failures. And this happened to be that this part just came out to be a little bit too brittle. I accidentally dropped it like that, and it decapitated itself. But the two test prints that were done on the printer came out perfectly fine. These were my first two test prints, again, with this resin that's expired, and they came out perfectly fine. And this one, I'm absolutely blown away. I've never had a printer print this well. Even my WeBox Lite, I guess I can say that I've never really truly tested out the limitations of my WeBox Lite, which is my best printer out of my smaller fleets. But this printed these little tower lines and everything like that, and this what do they call that? Like a gate or a railing. The railing is super, super thin, and it came out perfectly. Again, this is expired resin, and it printed it perfectly fine. I was absolutely blown away with this. This was like a 16-hour print, and this one was like a 14-hour print. So, I mean, both of these were insane. Now, granted, these obviously are made to look the best of the best. So I'm sure these are like 0.3 layer height and like the best settings and everything. But still, even with expired resin, they still came out perfect. Like, I'm simply blown away by this print alone. So, you know, again, is it worth the money? Absolutely. I think it's a far superior product compared to the Anycubic Photon and the LD-002rs, which are both in its price range. You could even throw in the SparkMaker FHD, which we got in about a week ago, and really you can't even compare that one because it's a much smaller build volume. But in terms of like the price range, if you're looking for a good starter printer, this by far is probably the best starter printer that I've gotten my hands on. It hits on all points. Like I said, the bed leveling, the air filtration system, the VAT. Also, going back to the VAT is a very, very interesting and unique design. So, unlike most of the resin printers, you have two options when it comes to the VAT placement or tie down. Usually you have screws that you unscrew and you take each screw out and you take the VAT and that's it. Or you have a clamp style, which like the LD-002rs and the Anycubic Photon have, which basically you slide the VAT in and you clamp it down. Okay? This one actually kind of has a weird one. So it unscrews, but the screws stay in the VAT. Unless you absolutely need to take off the screws to drain the VAT. So, I mean, if I really wanted to go back to a point where I have to make sure that I have a downside of this printer, that's about my only downside of this. Is I like to have VATs that have a pour spout on them, which this doesn't exactly have. And then the other issue is you have to remove one of those screws. Well, I should say you really don't have to, but I like to just to make sure I'm not getting resin on one of those screws. But with my VAT dripper, I want to make sure that everything is good and I'm not dripping on one of the screws. So I'll usually take out like the left screw and it'll unscrew a little bit and then you got to pull it up and then unscrew it a little bit more. And it takes, you know, about a minute or so, maybe a little bit less, maybe 30 seconds. To do that, but the screws do come out of this VAT. So if you wanted to put a different drill through VAT, you can probably utilize that. But again, this VAT is probably one of the better VATs I've seen out there for these budget machines because it has that that leveling system on it. So all in all, it's a very, very quiet machine. I barely even notice when it's printing. You have your main setup here with Creality, tools, system, and print. Now, obviously, I always take out the volume, so that's why it's super, super quiet. But, I mean, it's got everything that you need. You could set your zero, calibrate the screen, clean your VAT, manually level, do whatever you need to. And it's pretty straightforward. And setup is, I believe the file system is exactly the same as like the LD-002rs. It uses the CDDLP. I could be getting that wrong. I just usually just throw it on there and call it a day, so I don't really look at the file name, but I believe it utilizes the same type as LD-002r. Now, build volume-wise is pretty much going to be right in the same ballpark with the LD-002r and the Anycubic Photon. So, again, if you're looking for a good budget printer between those three, I'd say this is probably a little bit of the better one. So I do highly suggest this printer over those two because it just hits on some better points than both of them. Again, I've never had any issues with this printer. Now, I've had some issues in the past with my Elegoo printers, where, you know, it doesn't print the correct height. I had one where it was a millimeter off of the Z height, so that's quite devastating to someone who's, you know, printing models. You know, this model is supposed to be 20 millimeters, and it used to come out to 19 millimeters, or, you know, whatever it may be. So so that one didn't last very long in my fleet. So, you know, with the Anycubic, I haven't really had any issues except for, you know, the air filtration system not really working. So, so yeah, that's my basic review on it. Take it as you want. But I mean, so far it's been printing nonstop. It's a great budget machine, and in my personal opinion, as I've said several times in this video, I think it's a little bit better buy than the LD-002r and the Anycubic Photon, just because it has some key points that make it just slightly better, at least in my experience from printing with several different resin printers. You know, those are my points on it. So going back to stuff that I've upgraded or modified for it, again, I haven't really done anything except for printed an upgrade, 2 different style of drip plates. So there's this drip plate, which is more of an angled one, and this one is more comparative to the one I have on my LD-002rs, that it drips it off to one corner. So while this is a good print, it's not very good for this machine. The reason being is you usually have to take off the bed and slip it right on there. Whereas my LD-002rs is always on the printer. I never ever have to remove that. So for any of you guys that are like super awesome designers and are far better than me, because I'm just starting to learn, try and make one that has the ability to stay on the printer, because that would be far better. With that also being said, the other issue that is a problem with this is with both of these plates that I have, these tip plates, when you take it off, you tend to get resin on the front area here. So a lot of times I'm having to wipe this down and everything. So so that's not really, you know, something I want to keep doing. I want to take it off, put it off to the side, and then put it back on. Whereas I keep it on the vat area, so that way anything that's dripping while I'm moving it around at any point in time, you know, it'll stay in the vat and not drip all around it anywhere like that. So, so again, for any of you guys that are you know, modelers out there, if you guys can try and find something else, that would be totally awesome. I would support that 100%. And going back to talking about a new machine. So as of yesterday, I just got a notification from Creality that obviously you guys who use She2Box have known about the Creality LD-002r. Again, I'm not really sure why they're naming them that, but hey, by all means, have at it. But that is a new printer. I believe it is the exact same style printer. It just has a mono screen, which I will be getting here probably in the next week or two, I'm guessing. So we'll be doing an unboxing and then later on a review video, just as we're doing with this model. So obviously I don't really expect that to be any much different than this printer. But again, with it being a new style, you know, that might be a little bit more chaotic with issues because, you know, it is a new area for Creality to get into the whole mono thing. But it seems to be a trend that all the printers are going to mono screens, which is great because everybody wants a screen that lasts thousands of hours. And if that's the case, I mean, I have 15 resin printers here. If I had all mono screens, I mean, I'd never need a new printer again. So, so that would be totally awesome. But again, that's my basic review on this. It's a great printer for the price range that it's in versus the Anycubic Photon and the Elegoo Mars, the Elegoo Mars Pro, and even the Elegoo Mars Pro 2. It's a pretty good printer. I can't really speak on the Mars Pro 2 as of right now. I have yet to get one. Hint, hint, Elegoo. You know, for the standard Elegoos and the Photon and Photon S even, this is my pick over them. So that's my 2 cents on the subject. If you guys liked the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you can, go ahead and share it out to your friends. And, you know, we're so close to 1,000 subscribers. As of making this video, we're at 980 subscribers. So please go ahead and subscribe. That would mean the absolute world to me. I just want to hit 1,000 subscribers. After that, I will stop annoying you guys with it. It would be awesome to make this an official channel. But, again, I can only put it out there. You guys have to actually do it. So, until next time, guys, happy printing.